Okay, we're ready to go back to the next note item, which is 2024-1216-16. And it is to add $50,000 to facilities budget. Which added a 0.58 increase. Oh, actually a 0.7 increase. He had the two together. So, anybody want to bring this up one for discussion? Deputy Mayor Stover.
I understand that this was not a recorded vote item. I don't know where I believe I didn't support it, but I can't 100% say that I didn't support it. I would like to make a motion that we bring this back on the table for discussion.
Anybody want to second that? Second by one. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I think at this time, we would have our money go further than spending it into a facilities assessment. So that's where I think we have staff that could tell us what the buildings are in need of. And that's all I can say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments? Go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Mayor. Also, there has to be some time in our term here that we actually look at community centers. How many do we need? Libraries, how many do we need? Because every time we come to budget, I almost think sometimes we're nickel and diming ourselves here because we don't want to raise taxes enough to pay for the upkeep of all these buildings because they literally bring us back maybe 10% of what we're putting into them. So to me, we have, I believe we should have a massive public meeting and educate the residents on where we are right now as a municipality and where we are, where their tax dollars are going, and educate them on them. Because eventually, like when I go back and look at the percentage that it's gone up monthly, I mean, we're sitting here arguing over someone paying, say the average, I think the last time was $300, $300,000 home. And it was like $33, a $33 increase a month. Now that's $1 million for a 33-month increase for their home. So when we look at that, and I look at it, I just kind of wonder, like, why we're arguing so much. But at the same time, I got to look at it and say, it's not enough to keep this municipality going. And things are falling apart, the arena, our municipal office, our community centers. And we just don't have the money to fix them. So I think the residents need to know that. And have their input on where they'd like to see their tax dollars.
Like a little bit off subject, but appreciate your
Yeah.
comments. And just to address it a little bit, if you look at our strategic plan, the assessment of a couple of community centers is to be done by staff this year. So we'll be getting some recommendations from staff this year.
Point of order, did we actually approve reconsidering this, first of all? Did we vote for that?
Motion's on the floor.
But the motion we're discussing, I believe the motion is, should we be reconsidering? And we haven't voted on that one. The poor clerk was trying to get back after lunch and we got ahead of her.
Okay, so your motion was to be considered.
For discussion.
Anybody else have any comments on it? All in favor of the discussion?
Reconsider.
reconsider? Opposed? Okay. So that's carried. So what was your motion then, no?
Is to remove this from the levy, our budget. And leave it to staff to assess our buildings.
As a point of, excuse me, so as a point of clarity, the motion that's being reconsidered is that funds be allocated in the 2025 budget for facility assessments for offices and community centers. And that was originally moved by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Booth back at the December 16th council meeting, budget meeting.
Anybody else have any comments? Councilor O'Neill?
So I was the one who made this motion, and this is directly tied to us making our difficult in decisions about asset management. And we do not have the expertise to tell me whether this roof needs repaired or replaced and when, and how much that is going to cost. And those are the kinds of information that we need for each and every facility building that we have. We need it to make good asset management decisions. We need that information. Just as Councillor Ainsworth was saying, we have to make hard decisions. And if we find out that what it is going to cost to repair this building is 6 million, whereas to repair the Fenella building is only 1 million, well, that's going to help us make a decision about where which facility to maintain in the northern half of our municipality. But we do need expert information because we need to know what it's going to cost to replace the roofs, to know whether the foundations are secure. That's one of the pieces. The other piece is usage. And they did do a huge study. We do know from the Parks Master Plan that the recommendation is to go down to 3 community centers. And okay, that's great. Let's use that. But which 3 are going to be? We don't know. We just do not have the expertise to know how much is going to be required to make each of those buildings in good condition over the next 20 years.
Anybody else have any comment? Councilor Lee?
Just through you, your worship, I'm not sure, can somebody tell me the $50,000 that was to be allocated it for facility assessments for offices and community centers? So did we know exactly, like, that was going to be a tender out to, are we looking at all the buildings or what? Like, I can't remember what the original.
I don't know what $50,000 either. Did you have a comment on that, Mr. Giles?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the $50,000 is budgeted at $10,000 for each of the 5 community centers.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilor Wu, or Councilor Ainsworth.
Through you, Mayor. Again, with these whole feasibility studies, I guess if we're going to do them, let's make them a full package. Because if we're going to use the 2016 assessment as for today, you know, meaning 37% of our residents live here for 5 years or less. So things have changed. So I would say that if we're going to do it, then maybe we need to refocus on what we want out of them.
Any other comments? Councilor Neil, you've had about 4 minutes, so you're allowed another minute, and that's it.
All right, I think this is essential for us to do for asset management reasons. But I'm hoping that that money can be found from within the budget. I see here that there's 15,000, 17,000 for the CCC. Anyway, the combined amounts in here for building and grounds maintenance is 52,500. Without having the condition assessments, I'm not sure we should, I think that money needs to go first to doing the assessments, and then those assessments will guide where the money should go into buildings.
Thank you. Further discussion, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor Logo. Are the documents available from the last study? That would, I don't imagine the buildings have changed that much. The core, it would be a good reference, I would think.
According to the strategic plan, I'm not sure if this is your question, but the strategic plan said that we would be looking at 2 facilities, one in Vanilla and the other one in Vernonville. And that's what they were recommending to close.
Okay, so I guess if I may, Mayor Logo, so there has never been a facility assessment done on all our buildings?
I don't know.
Thank you.
Councilor Booth.
Just through you, your worship, to maybe Jeremy, because I know the comment was made, maybe staff can do this internally. Is that even possible, Jeremy, or you're strongly recommending that we go with a company to do it?
Through
Go
you,
ahead,
Mr.
Jeremy.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't necessarily have a recommendation one way or the other. I think that answer would really depend on how in depth of a review you're looking for. If you're looking for a complete structural review of the facilities, that's not something that staff could obviously provide and sign off on. So it just depends on the depth of the study that you're looking for.
So just a comment.
Yep.
Through you, your worship. So I guess it would make sense what Councillor Mary Catherine's saying then is, if we are going to come to the tough decision of what buildings or whatever to close, I think we do need some information as councillors and to what are we going to do? And I agree with the comment you made. If it's 10 million to fix one building and 500,000 to fix one, then we need some kind of argument or some kind of numbers, and it doesn't sound like staff is qualified to do that or too busy. So it is what it is, right? I mean,
I think we need to have a staff recommendation. If we decide that, if staff decides then they need something like that, then they'll make that recommendation. Would you agree?
I do. That's why I'm saying this came from staff, right? This BER.
Did not.
How to get here?
Mary Catherine?
It does build, and our discussion hasn't included the municipal building, but we had last year approved to do a structural review of the municipal building. But this roof in particular interests me after the Ontario Science Centre and then Notre Dame and Cobourg, both buildings having whatever that roof system was, and this one being built at the same time. I know this is a relatively new building, but I am very curious about what has to happen. And at 40 years, it is the time for something to happen before it starts to be in disrepair.
Go ahead.
Could we defer this to the February 10th meeting to get staff input on this?
I think that's a great idea, but I don't want to keep loading up the February 10th until we're going to be another full day. It could be, but I think that's a reasonable.
It's a lot of money here.
Could I get a seconder for that? Second by Councilor Booth, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. I wanted to go to next to page 25 with a real quick comment. And that is regarding the historical minimum tax levy increase. Over this report, minimum tax levy increases over the past, including the 0% increase during the COVID-19 pandemic, have led to department service and infrastructure being underfunded to deliver the services and a depletion of reserves. This places pressure on the township to find new revenue sources, consider service level cuts, or increase the levy to ensure the long-term financial sustainability of the township and meet its regulatory obligations. That was just a quick comment. Page 33.
Mayor
Already done that
Lobo,
one?
just getting back to your comment on page 25. Through the COVID pandemic, are you saying that we had no tax increases?
That's what the report says.
Okay. It almost, go ahead.
And I don't know for sure, but I would think if I read into that a little bit more, and that's just my guess, is there was a growth increase which wouldn't affect anybody. But that was it. There we go.
Yeah, interestingly, I did go back and look at some of our historical numbers from our website. So I looked at our our audited financial statements from 2015 to 2023, and then I used the budgets for 2024 and 2025. But over that 10-year period, we've actually seen an 84% increase in our taxes over that decade. Now, I know some of it is growth and some of it is tax levy. And yeah, we've got a lot going on. I actually do somewhere in my piles of stuff have it compared to the CPI, and we have consistently been above the CPI in our tax increases. But as the mayor noted, some of that is from growth. Oh, there's my handy dandy little graph. And the only year there was a lag there during COVID, but then we went and recovered that in our first year when we were elected.
Thank you. What did I say? Page 33. Okay, so let's go to page 32. And that's the council draft budget. We can approve that, then it'll be off the table. Any comments to put it on the table? I get a recommendation to put it on the table. Just so we can approve it. Don't understand. Are there any amendments that anybody would like to see in this motion? Mary Kaplan.
It's not an amendment. It's just a question on why we're changing the amount we're putting into the election reserve. Did we get some feedback that those costs were going to be more than we'd originally anticipated?
Go ahead. Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've increased the contributions to the election reserve to take into account any changes that might be coming from a provincial policy standpoint. There's a lot of talk right now about going back to paper ballots in regards to
Yeah.
in regards to online security. So there's nothing. So it's just being prepared in the eventual, if something should come down the pipes. Also, we have to take into account that we have seen some population growth from the last election. and just taking into account different securities and, of course, the general cost of inflation that might affect going forward.
Need a motion to approve?
Deputy Mayor, I was gonna second, but she had hers up first.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor O'Neill. Any further discussion?
Mayor,
Go ahead.
to you, Mayor, I just want to question the council equipment and furniture for $10,000. So I remember back in our first term, our first year, that we put $10,000 away for that. And we've never used it. That I know.
Why they took it out.
Which line is that? That under capital or?
Under capital, yes.
Well, we're not putting down any of the budget.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You're okay with it then?
Sorry.
All in favor? That's approved. Page 33, we've already done. Next item is. Pages 41, 42, which is the administration budget. Now, are we, oh, can I ask you, Aaron, do you have any idea where we are today? As far as the budget? You've been keeping track of the, what we've taken out and added up. Have we done made any changes?
Just this morning with the donations and the library, there was just a couple
That
of
was
little
all we've
items.
done so far?
That's all you've done so far.
The
Everything
others
else has
in the
been
in and out.
deferred.
Okay, so,
Sorry, through you, your mayor.
yep,
Before you jump into the administration one, can I make a note? Because I've already talked to this line.
okay,
One of the numbers did not flow through properly on the 2025 budget, which is the HR services and legal fees. After having discussions last week, this number was changed from 23,000 to 75,000 to cover union negotiations. It is already included in the percentage. It just did not get included when we uploaded the budget package. So the money is set aside in that percentage with the levy. Nothing else changes, just the number on the sheet.
Which one was that again? So
line, which are services and legal fees.
Page 42.
and it's going to be what, Mr. Mayor?
75,000. And that, can you clarify what is that for? That's not for negotiations?
That is for negotiations after seeking some information from priors, because this is our first union negotiation. Depending on timelines, we're looking at quite a few dates. So it was recommended to put an upper budget in there with the cost of doing the negotiations, the legal fees, building the contract, everything of that nature. So we are covered.
There's nothing in there for the contract.
No,
Thank you.
as of right now, we have no contract and we are still at a standstill of meeting the forward stuff. So we're nowhere near any of those numbers yet.
Thank you, Mary Catherine.
I'm wondering if you could bring a written report to council at some point explaining what those steps are, what kinds of things we can anticipate, some of those timelines, so that we've got some more idea of what's actually involved in this process.
Aaron?
I can speak to a little bit of that right now. And as it sits right now, we haven't officially met with the union. It's looking like our first meeting won't even be until end of March, beginning of April. Once that first meeting is initiated, our contractor who is helping me with the negotiations, we will come back at that time with a better timeline of everything.
Mary Catherine?
I don't seem to recall authorizing a contractor. Could you explain that to me and where that was authorized?
Under the procurement, it was under the amount of needing to come to council at this time.
Here, Catherine?
So given that we now have 75,000 being allocated in budget, I would assume it does need to come to council with a full report at this point then.
Again, not until we get into the meat of things with that, then we'll bring that forward.
Go ahead, Greg.
Through you, your worship. So that's an increase of $59,000 in that budget. And I'm not sure that I understand what you're telling me, that you're saying that not until we're in the meat of it, if we have somebody that we've hired and we're spending $59,000 more, to me, that sounds like a report should be coming to council to say, who are we dealing with and who's doing it and stuff like that. We shouldn't be waiting. If they're already meeting with you and having meetings and charging us, then we should know about this.
At the beginning in the procurement policy, we have gone out for specific information. We've gone through the county, which is through our services that we are allowed to go through as per our contract with them. And again, that will come up at a further date once we get a little further into items. Right now, we are in like a freeze, so we cannot discuss or do anything. It will come back to council at a later date, though. This is anticipation of what it could cost. It is not necessarily that it is going to cost. So again, being proactive in what we see coming, we're just having the money there so we don't have to come multiple times to you.
Yes.
Can you remind me, under the procurement bylaw, at what point have you spent the amount of money that is capped? And then it does need to come to us.
I believe it's 25,000 under discretion of 10,000 under the CAO. The CAO can be at that discretion.
Sure, that's correct. You read the purchase.
Sorry, and what happens between 10 and 25 then?
It's at the discretion of the CAO upwards. I believe it's 25,000. Then we have to go to 3 quotes, and I believe it's 50. Then we go to RFP, but I'll double check those numbers for you.
Thank you.
But we haven't hit those numbers yet.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes. To be clear, with respect to our HR department, we work to our capacity, and then we have agreements to work with the county, of which we contact the county, and we deal with their HR department to see if staff is available. Once we're informed staff is not available, they make recommendation as to what we should do next. And that is the process that was followed in this case.
Thank you. I have 2 questions, and it's regarding capital. There's $80,000 for administration. Can you tell me what that would be?
So that is the BERs, the 240,000, one for development charges, one for compensation.
Thank you. And also, additional computer equipment for $150,000.
That is our contract with the Northumberland IT. And it was noted that we did not use all the funds last year, so they have brought forward a new contract and new items that will go through the contract of what they lined in 2023, 2024, when it was first approved.
Okay, so you expect we could spend up to 150? Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions?
Oh, I do actually have another question.
Go ahead.
It's near the beginning with the investment income, and I appreciate that you don't want to overestimate our revenues, and yet that's a significant decrease from what the actual was this year, and just wondering what the reasoning is there.
First of all, we've taken $2 million out of our reserve account, so that's going to hit you pretty heavy. And the other fact is, in 2024, I believe where interest was paying like 5 or 6%. Now we're down to probably half that. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor?
Through you,
And this has to do with the records management. Are we up where we need to be with records management? This is for you, Aaron. Thank you.
I'm gonna actually defer this back to Emily with records management because I'm not familiar with where we sit with it.
Madam Clerk?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Can I just get that repeated, please?
Oh, yeah, it was the records management, 20, we didn't pay anything in 2024, but there was a budget of 14,000. So I'm just wondering, are we where we need to be with records management?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we did take a look at the existing software that we did have in place, and through a quick analysis, it was more robust than where we're at this point in time. So we've put a hold on that
Okay.
for implementation. So we're going back to the basics approach, which is taking a look at our physical records. And until we get the IT infrastructure in place, we're holding back. We'll be able to do a lot when we migrate to the new IT infrastructure from an electronic record standpoint. We'll be able to implement a lot of internal processes to help clean up those digital files and manage with the current system that we have in place. It's just a matter of realigning the project scope and working again for a municipality of our shape and size.
Thank you.
Okay, we should be able to sign off on this one unless there's something that has come up during our discussions this morning, and I'm paying close enough attention to those. Okay, the compensation BER 202503, which is the consideration for the compensation review, is still up for grab because it's on deferred, and everything else to be able to be approved. I can move in a second.
Sorry, I have one more question.
Okay.
You had said something earlier that there'd been a change in the HR wages line, and from that, I thought it had actually decreased, but it looks like it's increased, or was that decreased from our first budget? Sorry, that line, if you could go through it for me.
It's decreased from the first budget as I had help originally slated in to help me until in April. Unfortunately, they left that position, so I've realigned that amount.
Thank you. Motion? So the administration budget will be approved except for the BR 03. Okay. We can wait till February 10th if we want. The only thing is, the only thing that's left on here is that. But we don't want to go through it, but we'll be here for the cows come home. So if you're making note of that, that would be.
Sorry,
Yes,
wouldn't there also be implications for that budget for the facility assessments if that one moves forward? Well, we've already approved the facility assessment for that building, so it should be showing somewhere.
that'll be under facilities, I believe.
The 10,000 for the admin building is under contracted services.
Okay, super, thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to page. Page 50. And we have the heritage and cemetery budgets. So can I get a mover to put them on the floor? Moved by Councilor Ainsworth, second by Councilor Booth.
I have questions first.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we understand. So Mike, your motion is to move that we approve? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mary Catherine.
With regard to the heritage, the book sales from last year, what account did that revenue from the book sales go into?
It will be an internal transfer and it will be transferred to reserves because it was an over estimate on the reserve side. And that is why we now have some money to be able to take the 1,500 out of reserves for 2025.
Any other questions?
Sorry, yeah, because that was part of why I got confused by this. Because when I, oh, sorry, it was a follow-up question through you, Mayor Logal.
Thank you.
When I looked back at the reserves, it actually showed a decrease from 2024 from 2023, and yet in mine, if that money was going in there or it hasn't, like, what's going on there?
Aaron,
2024
Mayor.
internal reserve, sorry, through you, your mayor.
thank you.
2024 reserves have not been internally transferred yet. So therefore it does not show in the reserves yet. It will be moved into there when the final, at the end of 2024.
You have another question?
Through you to the rest of council. I was sitting on that committee and I know that when we were reading in the recommendations of what kind of funding they recommended municipalities have, it was in the 0.2% range being allocated to heritage. And at this point, we're not allocating anything to heritage, it ties in with asset management like everything else if we're not allocating any funds to it. And then in the future, we want to do a project. So if we were going to give, and I'm not suggesting it should be 0.2%, I'm recommending 0.1%, and that we should allocate $8,658 to it, just because that would set us up for future. Okay, I have to hold that idea.
Thank you. Oh, you can make an amendment to your,
Okay, then I will happily do that. I would like to make an amendment that we allocate 0.1% or an amount of $8,658, and it might be slightly different in the end, but 0.1% of the tax levy to heritage for future projects.
need a seconder for that? Councilor Booth? Can you clarify what you're after?
0.1% of the tax levy.
Which I agree is somewhere around $8,000.
Mm-hmm. If you want it to say
Councilor
8,000,
Lee?
that's fine.
Through you, your worship, to the treasurer, can you tell us what's in reserves right now for the Heritage Fund, Aaron?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Through your mayor, currently there's $1,400. And then with the internal transfer from the book sales, it will go up to about 10,000 plus the 1,400.
Well, in my opinion, that's lots enough to be there. That's $12,000. That's my opinion. Go ahead, Mary Catherine.
I'm arguing it on principle that is a good policy for us to have, but I would be comfortable with that being something we send back to our committee when we meet. But I do think we should have a policy that has us ensuring that we are considering caring for our heritage and assigning money to it. I also, once again, have to give a huge shout out to Gary Mossman, who wrote that book and donated
Off subject.
essentially that money to us.
Stay on subject. Go ahead, Councilor Booth.
Through you, your worship, I would agree with you. Then if there's $12,000 in there, then I would say for this year, that's pretty good. And I agree with Councillor Mary Catherine that it's probably better that when that committee, then they can talk about maybe coming back next year to have I don't know,
Policy.
a policy or something. So I agree with what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, that 12,000 is pretty good.
Further discussion? Yes. Motion, thank you.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion to, the amendment is to include a 0.01% tax levy increase to the heritage budget.
And for further discussion? All in favor? Motion's defeated.
Mayor Loco,
Yes.
could I make a direction then that we request that a policy be developed by the Heritage Committee to help guide our, or not, they're not going to develop it, make recommendations for a policy that we can then use in the future.
I would suggest that the Heritage Committee come to do that themselves and then come to council for approval.
Oh, sorry about that, clerk.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve what we have in front of us. All in favor? That motion's carried. Mary Catherine,
So it is a recommendation that, or sorry, that we ask the Heritage Committee to make recommendations on policy for future investment.
so what's the CAO, the president, the clerk is recommending is that we draft something to the committee so that they'll present that to us.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for.
We don't need to move in second. Okay, she's just gonna, when she works on the planning, they'll be put into the process for that. Yep,
Sorry, just so that there's a record of that we want them to do it. That's more or less what I'm saying.
that's what she's got, correct?
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we are developing work plans with all of our advisory committees. So that would be something that the committee could bring up. So as committee rep, you could bring it up at that point. If council wishes to make it a direction to that committee, then you would pass a motion at this time to give that specific direction. So if you're looking to give specific direction to refer the matter to the Heritage Committee, this would be the time to do it. And, or we could just bring it up through the work plan. So there's two ways to accomplish the same goal. It's just depending on how you want to move forward as council.
I mean, it is one of these things, but that wouldn't be something they would necessarily be looking at. But maybe it is. Policy, recommendations to policy would fall into their scope. If it's all, I'll bring it back if I don't see it fitting after.
Okay. We're at the 4-hour time limit. Does anybody want to continue on? Moved by Deputy, or pardon me, Councilor Booth, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth, all in favor? Motion carried. I think the next one that we're looking at is the cemeteries budget. That's been extended up to $8,000. Total revenues of $8,600 and expenses of $11,576. So net taxation of almost $3,000. Can I get a mover and a seconder to move that we approve? Moved by Councilor Ainsworth, second by Deputy Mayor Stoller. Any discussion? All in favor?
Oh, I just wanted to ask, with the Rust Creek Building and Grounds internal, would that mean that we stop cutting the grass there? No, it's just an internal move.
Turn Bill.
Through you, your mayor. Yes, we've moved all of our internal buildings and ground items over into facilities. So we will take a look at that, but at this time it's covered.
Thank you.
The next one I believe is,
We didn't vote on that.
all in favor. The cemeteries. That's carried. The next one we have is the building department. And we have one DER. That's for the permit application administrator. So. Let's get a movement of this on the table, and I would assume it's to approve.
Mhm.
I get a mover.
I'll move.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Stoller, second by Councilor Ainsworth. Discussion. Deputy, pardon me, Councilor O'Neill.
Okay, I'm not sure whether I'm going through you, Mayor, to our building official. Sorry, whether it's the clerk or the building official is really where I'm going on this. Now, I know you need to have a 0 at the end of yours by law, correct?
Through the mayor to members of council, yes, that is the ideal situation.
And so then if we're like, where's our revenue for this new position coming from?
If I may, through the mayor to members of council, this isn't actually a new position. It's basically topping up half a position. And I would like to point out that we were up through this council approved the building fees and bylaw increase, or building permit fees will be going up this year. They already are, and that will help offset the costs.
Any other further questions? Councilor O'Neill.
So would you, well, two things. One is a question through to our CAO from this morning, but one is to you. Would you then think you're moving forward once you've established that there is revenue coming in for this position?
Can you comment, Mr. Bothwell?
I don't really understand the question. Could you rephrase it, please?
So in previous years, the way that we were looking at this is if there was extra revenue coming in, then the person was hiring extra staff ad hoc for the busy times. And so that was what we've done in the previous 2 years, is if there was this extra revenue, we then hired extra staff to meet this increased demand. And so this is a change to what we've done in the last 2 years. And my question, I guess, is why are we not continuing with this where you get the second person when you have that demand rather than hiring the person and maybe getting revenue or not getting revenue?
Okay. Through the mayor to members of council, one thing, operating the building department with what I call half a staff. Our current administrator is divided between both planning and building. Going forward, I'd just like to point out, one of the other BERs we had on this list for this year was the computer software upgrade. Software upgrades to allow the public to make applications online. There will be a tremendous amount of time that'll be required. And this is always required from the end users, which is like our administrative position, to help configure this software. So once we get that program rolled out, there will be a time that'll be very crucial that the person using the software works with the development company to configure it all. As well, I believe there's a significant amount of cleaning up of records that needs to be done moving forward to go from a pre-digital into a digital age. I'm also looking at hopefully the increase in activity in the planning department will bring us increases in permits this year. This is all monies, these are all benefits to the building department that will support the strategic plan and customer service being number one of them. I feel that we will have the building permit fee increase to help offset. And when I looked at the numbers, again, it's not a full position, it's basically just to top up a half of a person.
Thank you. That answered all your questions?
No, I still have a question for the CAO about the number of full-time positions, because this would essentially, if we approved both this one and the one in planning, then we're going to have a full-time person in each of those. And yet you're saying we're having fewer full-time positions. Like, I'm confused.
Through you, Mayor, based on the information provided in the budget document and based on the questions of council earlier today, we're going to bring that report back.
Okay, and all will be clear.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments regarding this? Seeing none, all in favor?
Oh,
Yes,
sorry. I'd like to make a motion to defer on whether or not we can afford this increase in positions until we see what the final tax levy is looking like.
we made any changes, Aaron?
No.
Okay. Got to get a seconder for that? Oh, we got to handle the first one first. Third one. Are you seconder to defer? Seconded by Councilor Booth. Any other further comments? All in favor?
I just wanted to make a comment. I think it's a good idea because we've deferred the other one too. So this will give us a clearer picture on the 10th of what exactly we're doing with these positions and whether or not we can afford it.
I thought, I could be wrong, but I thought the other position, are you talking about the planning one?
No, not the planning.
Oh.
I believe it was the Parks and Rec one, was it? We deferred? One of them was deferred.
No,
No,
the laborer.
foreman or the laborer we deferred
Okay.
to.
Okay, we've done a motion to defer. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. So I'd say that gives approval to stop the vote. Okay. Go back to the original motion, which was to approve the or approve the budget. Approves the ER 202505 permits application administrator. I get a move in a second. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. Further discussion?
Could I ask for a recorded vote, please, just so that we know if we're changing things in the future, we have it written down.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've had a request for a recorded vote. I will go through the members of council. Sorry, starting with the person who requested the recorded vote, which is Councillor Booth. And when I say your name, please indicate yay or nay as to how you would like to vote on the following motion. That council approve BER 2025-05 permit application administrator. Councillor Booth,
Yes.
Councillor Ainsworth, Councillor O'Neill,
Can I abstain?
I no, abstain is a no vote.
I recognize that. I'm at this point, I really do appreciate the arguments made by the CBO, but I am uncertain whether or not I want to make a $36,000 approval of this at this point.
Abstaining is a no.
But I will abstain.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Deputy Mayor Stover,
I approve this, yes.
Mayor Logal. Motion is carried.
Okay. I think we're on to the back to page 53. And I need someone to approve this budget as presented. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconder. Councillor Booth. Further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Next, we're going on to the fire department. We're going page 62. Get the CA, pardon me, the clerk to give me a hand with this. So next we have the fire 2005 fire and bylaw department budgets. And we're looking to get approval of the fire, this budget. So can I have a mover and a second to approve this budget? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, second by Councillor Ainsworth. Is there anything you want to discuss? Councillor O'Neill.
I have a question through you to the fire chief, if I could, or fire chief and bylaw. When you originally came to us and talked about your volunteer firefighters doing bylaw work, it was my understanding that this made sense for us to do it because they were already being paid within fire. And now it looks like you are wanting to pay them outside of fire. It's in bylaw.
Karen, do you have a comment?
As it stands, because of their contracts, we moved them into the part-time payroll because they were getting the associated fees taken out of their pay. When they're under the volunteer, they were not getting CPP, EI, and those items taken out. And because they became consistent 1 day a week positions, that this needed to be changed.
What should be added there through you, Mayor, is that due to the Employment Standards Act's requirement, this was a decision of the treasurer at the time. Albeit it was approved by council for their assistance. It was just a matter of us ensuring we're following the EI appropriately.
Councillor O'Neill.
Just to follow up then, when we're looking at the wages that we were looking at last year for those two individuals and the wages coming forward for next year, what's the difference there?
At this time, I can't answer that as I just put them in under bylaw and I wasn't aware of their hours for 2024 as it went through a different payroll process.
Are you asking for the hourly rate or what are you asking for?
If we're just moving this because of HR logistics and there's no financial difference, then while it looks like that's a big increase to the bylaw, if it's a decrease in fire, then to us as council, it's the same thing. But if in the moving of them from the fire into the bylaw, there's actually an increase in costs, then that's also something we should know as council.
Through your mayor, so there was an increase in cost due to having CPP, EI, WSIB, HT, all of their remittances on top of their pay added. So there was an increase due to that.
Thank you. Councilor Booth.
Through you, your worship, to the treasurer. So I'm guessing then, Aaron, the volunteer firefighter wages, then you would have subtracted that from this budget, right? Because if we're putting it on bylaw, then their wages that were originally there should go. So let's say it was $10,000. $10,000 then should have come off the volunteer firefighter wages because it's going to bylaw, right? Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
So when the workers work for bylaw, then their hours fall under the bylaw department budget. When they work for fire under their volunteer statute, it falls under the fire budget. So that there's no money that changes hands between the two budgets.
Because the person's doing two different jobs. Before, he was just doing volunteer fire department and didn't work so many hours. Now his job's been added to do the bylaw portion.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to get my head around it because last year, if the bylaw people did bylaw, it came out of the fire budget. Because we didn't have them in the bylaw budget, right? So that's what I'm trying to get my head around. So let's say, Dave, it was $10,000 that they did for bylaw, but it came out of your budget. I'm just wondering then if we're transferring it to bylaw, which is fine, then that means that shouldn't stay in the fire budget then, right?
Go
That
ahead.
makes sense?
Through you, Mayor, I completely understand where Councillor Booth is coming from. So if we back up a little bit, initially, when we started this project, the funds were transferred from fire to bylaw. The item identified in the bylaw department, which we're not discussing yet, but when we do, though that revenue item expense item came directly out of the building department. What we've done is we've broken out bylaw, taken it directly right out of building department and made it its own standalone budget. And that's what you're seeing has happened here. So the 2024 numbers presented was what was in the building department budget because it was building department and bylaw. So
Okay.
we've separated it out is what we've done.
Okay, thank you.
The other question. Councilor Ainsworth.
Through you, Mayor. So under the fire operating, we have an agreement there for First Nations and county. At this point, because we're in negotiations with the First Nations, I would like to, defer any of that until the agreement's done.
I guess I'd like to know how far we are in the process, and I don't believe we're that far in negotiating, so if we are in negotiating, in fact, so I would hate to hold up the whole budget based on that. CAO?
Through you, Mayor, Councillor Ainsworth. So the agreement, the emergency services agreement with AFN hasn't been signed now, I believe, in 6 years. So we're working towards solving that. What we've agreed to in a recent visit with the respected individuals of AFN, we've agreed to formulate a committee to look at all of this in its entirety. So that includes your roads maintenance contract, your fire and emergency services, our relationship with them, and it will be addressed. I would, not that I can tell you which direction to vote, but I would highly recommend that we maintain business as usual until we're able to establish a new contract.
Councilor Booth?
Through you, your worship. So just building on Councilor Ainsworth's question, could you maybe explain to us, Dave, if the budget was 60,000 and we got 20, is that number up to date, or are they still giving us more money? And the 53,000 for 2025, so is that just for fire they're paying for now? We're not mixing the roads in this or anything like that. This is just strictly fire, right?
That is correct. So the 53,000 is lower than the 60,000 through you, Mayor, for reasons of the amount of the emergency services contract with AFN is 45,000. And the $8,000 comes from the county for fire protection services of the county forest. So we made it an exact figure.
Okay, so, sorry, Mr. Mayor, through you again. So the 19,000 we've received so far, is that AFN money or is that county money? I'm guessing the county's paid, have they? Or are they delinquent too? Because 60,000
I
to
wouldn't say
20.
I wouldn't say either one of them is delinquent. I think you may have to check on it, but I think delinquent's probably,
Well, it's just,
probably a little bit strong.
who have we got the 19,000 from, I guess?
And who have we not?
I can tell you with full certainty that we've never not collected. Sometimes it's just delayed.
Are you trying to look up something? here?
Yeah.
Okay,
Virtually.
I'll ask I'll ask anybody if they have any other questions. Go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Mayor. So maybe if I rephrase my question, do we need to put that number there if we keep business as usual? So could we keep a running tally? Because that number may change depending on the service. That makes sense.
Go ahead.
I would suggest that through our committee work, that we identify a call for service or a needs for service, that we'll be looking at the evaluation of the service that is being provided, including all of the detail. Not that I'm trying to give you a lawyer's answer, but it is part of the work that we do need to do. I do believe that we received some new information and good information while attending Roma. And we have some new potential opportunities to look at. So
Okay.
The goal is to continue to see what we can do.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor Logal, to Aaron, when I look at the cost recovery insurance and MTO and the budgeted and then the two figures here, are we used to be kind of behind the eight ball getting the money back from the MTO, but is this more of a realistic number?
For you, Mayor Logo, Deputy Mayor, so the 105 is a representative of MTO plus insurance. So where our residents have insurance provisions, provided that they have an insurance claim that cover fire services, that gives us an opportunity to recoup some of the cost to fight that. In a conversation at the time of the preparation of the 2024 budget, I cautioned about making the number too high because that number is directly reflective of other people's disparities, meaning that they've had an emergency. So in 2023, we had 2 to 3 major fires. And so the claims were elevated.
Right.
And so I believe in 2023, we collected over 105,000. In fact, I think it was around 141. So it was made 105. We've come back and based on my earlier deliberations to council today to say that we're lowering the revenue side to make it more obtainable. So a $50,000 is more in line with what we would charge year after year for insurance claims and MTO. The MTO portion comes from our coverage of the 401 specifically. The insurance coverages, a lot of that also comes from motor vehicle accidents where there is non-residents that are charged for services. All those that are residents, should they have a motor vehicle collision, are not charged unless the accident was by way of criminal intent.
Do you have an answer
Sounds
to
good.
that question?
Did I not answer?
Pardon
No,
me?
going back to the county and First Nations one.
Sorry.
Through you, your mayor, the county has paid their portion of the $8,000 as well as their portion under the agreements under that with the shared fire hall that we collect services from the county as well.
Anybody else have any, Mayor Catherine?
Just when it's saying from reserves, one's for capital purchases and then it just says from reserves. So are you saying you're anticipating using 300,000 for operations this coming year from reserves?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yes, we should. Um. Sorry, I have to go back and think now. I believe that's why.
Yes.
Sorry. Yes, so it is kind of an in and an out again, for this purpose because we are not buying any capital purchases, but we want to put money back into the reserve for fire for the procurement plant for further years. And because of council's decision for the debenture not to go to debenture and use money that we already have, there was a change in those numbers. Does that make sense?
So maybe. So you're saying we agreed to put money in moving forward each year for the vehicle procurement plan, and this part is related to the reserves back and forth with the vehicle procurement plan?
That's correct. Just to cover costs. It goes back to the debenture, the extra capital purchase, of the fire truck, and there was another vehicle that was purchased.
The one that's on order now. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so Aaron had done this calculation to put that in there. There's 300 coming from reserves, but there's 365, 500 going back in. So it's a flow of the money and it's being identified through the budget.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover and seconded by Mary Cochran. Oh, okay. I can't read that for that long. Seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. All in favor? Motion's carried. Moving right along. We have the emergency measures operating budget. And it looks fairly simple. Holding on line. From the 2014 budget, 24 budget. So can I get a mover and a seconder to approve this budget? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Ainsworth. I'm sorry. Councilor O'Neill, sleeping today. Councilor Booth, you had a question?
Yeah, just through you, your worship, you could probably answer this. The wages there, is that for committee members attending that, or what is that for?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Through your mayor, a part of this comes from the CAO fire chief's position, as their also title is emergency management. So we just take a portion of his wages and move it into this to cover off for emergency purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Go ahead, Mary Catherine.
Just that what we anticipated happening in 2024 and what did happen, there does seem to be some discrepancy wondering what the explanation is there.
Are you referring to a particular line?
Well, just overall that we anticipated spending almost 15,000, we spent 222.
Through your mayor.
Yes.
Those again are internal transfers that just haven't happened yet, so it will be more in line once 2024 comes to an end with our counting books.
Thank you, Aaron. All in favor? Motion's carried. The next one we have is the bylaw budget for 2025. Looks like it's going up some, but let's get it on the table and first of all, then we can discuss it. I can move in a second. Moved by Councillor Booth, second by Councillor Ainsworth. Anybody have any questions? That's fine. You can answer it.
Thanks for allowing me to ask my own question. So we are recognizing and have been recognizing through many conversations with council, the absolute necessity for bylaw enforcement. As the municipality grows, this will continue to be something of need. We've been incrementally increasing it, and we're doing that again for 2025. Eventually, and we're really, really close, this will identify more than likely the position of one bylaw officer for the municipality in the not too distant future. So I don't think that we're there yet. That's why we're still doing the best we can with the plan that came forward to council. But this is putting you in good shape for the future. It's an investment on what we call your staffing infrastructure, which is really important.
But that your wages aren't going up that much, so that must mean you're gonna cancel out the part-timers and then add them on the full-time?
Not,
I'm not saying that that's the plan for 2025. I'm identifying that this budget is putting the township in the position that they will be able to make that decision in the future. The other thing I will point out at this time is that we are in negotiations with the county with respect to bylaw enforcement in the forest. I don't have the final report to bring to council yet because I don't have it from the county, meaning I don't have the agreements to bring to council to make the full presentation. But based on our conversations with council during 2025 and the direction to investigate opportunities with the county and the county forest, that's what staff has been doing. We're close, and I'm hoping that there will be costs. I'm hoping that there will be funds that will be allocated to the revenue line here to help offset the cost of this department.
You, Catherine?
through you, Mayor Logal, when can we expect a report coming in of some of the numbers and the work that was accomplished? This was something that we have as a council invested in, and when will we hear back what we're getting back for our investment?
Yep, that's easy.
When?
When? As soon as we can to the next council meeting. I will just, all of that information is documented on FirePro, so I can give you information as to how many bylaw complaints we've dealt with in 2024 and can give the yearly update.
So you'll have something to compare now, what we had in 2024. That's a good
I can
start.
compare 24 to 23.
Well, you can do 23 because you've already got that information.
Well, I can do 23 because I can tell you there wasn't much.
Okay. Well,
But we did get a report in 23, so.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments? All in favor? That's carried. Next, we have the draft budget for Parks and Recreation. And I know there's some things that are still on hold. So we won't be discussing those because we'll have to wait till we get the response back from the bird, but is there any other things that you want to discuss? First of all, get a move in a second. Moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Councillor O'Neill.
No, sorry, I have a question.
Second by Councilor Booth. I just wanted. There's two million held up. Well, we can go ahead and finish this one up because the only one that was on hold for that I'm aware of or that we're aware of is for the ball diamond. We made the decision on that. But is there anything else? It was second by Councilor Booth. Councilor Ainsworth.
Through you, Mayor. I guess I just question why we shouldn't be putting money in reserves for the arena. Are we waiting for, you know, the feasibility studies and grants and stuff like that, or where we're going with that, or is, Like- you know, we got building upgrades and playgrounds and there's nothing there. So just a question.
Go ahead, Aaron. You want to comment or I can if you want. Well, why aren't we putting money in that? What you asked is why we aren't putting money in reserves. Go ahead. GAO.
Through you, Mayor, to council. As I presented earlier today, there's only so much money to go around. And our budgets with your current staff are stepping stones. And so Mr. Giles has identified what he feels is appropriate to achieve in 2025. After 2025, then there will be the identification of more. It's similar to our roads infrastructure. We understand and know we have tons of roads that we need to do. We know we have bridges that we need to do. We're no different than every other municipality in the province. We only have so many tax dollars to go around. And our focus based on our strat plan has really to provide service to the residents. I guess we're hoping that the province is going to have some sort of solution for us for the future on what we're going to do, because it's the province that holds the key to that being one is impact, the control of that basically, right? So they need to come up with funds and grant dollars and tax dollars to give back to the municipalities to afford the things that they can't afford on an everyday budget. You're looking at what I call a working budget. It's to keep things on. If we had more money in our parks, recreation facilities, we might not be sitting here freezing today. Right? It's where the rubber meets the road. So the money's not identified to go into the arena reserves, but if you look at history, there never has been. We haven't put money into our facilities or parks and recreation. We've been running on a bare bones budget. So I really hope that, again, if we back up to December the 14th, where I made a recommendation to council give direction for staff to put together a 3-year plan and deliverable by September 2025. Staff can put together a financial plan on where they see things. It doesn't mean you're approving the budget for 3 years. It just means it's giving you some dollars to look at and to look to. And it'll also provide the next council an opportunity to see where you've come from to look to, as opposed to, example, you sitting here today and not having the history.
The other thing that if I can comment on that, I think the asset management plan will force it. Whether we won't really are planning to do it in September or not, so, but the two of them tie really well together. Aaron, do you have a comment?
Through your mayor, and that will lead back to your first discussion of the day of the infrastructure levy, as that is a capital facility and could be used for that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have 2 points that I'd like to raise. The first is that when we look at the revenue from the arena, anticipate it's 117,000 and the expenses are 571,000. That's a lot of money that we are spending for the users of that arena. In fact, right now, we are above and beyond the revenue from the arena, asking for every single resident in here to allocate 5.24% of their tax bill to the arena. And that's a lot of money to one facility. And it's, to your point, even then, we're not putting in the kind of money to keep it. I have grave concerns about whether or not we can sit here and say that we're going to operate next year. Or are we setting ourselves up for exactly what just happened this year? So that's my comments on the cost of the arena. I don't believe we can probably pass this budget because we've got outstanding questions about that position. And that's coming back on February 10th. My other, the labor position.
It ties into the education.
Yes.
And then I have a question about the arena from reserves, the 82,000. I believe that's for the needs assessment, but then I don't flip the page and see that our needs assessment is actually being paid for. So I would think we should see 82,000 over there or whatever number it was for the needs assessment.
That needs assessment through you, your mayor. The needs assessment is through the arena contracted services.
That's nice.
Okay. I saw it in one place and I didn't see it in the other. Thank you for that. And overall, I have very, very big reservations about this budget and the increase at this level. I mean, it would be wonderful, but there's so many other pressures for exactly the same money as our CAO identified. We are going to have to make decisions about where we allocate money. And I'm thrilled, as you say, the asset management plan, when we are done, we are going to be in a better spot than us sitting here today.
Go ahead, CAO.
Through you, Mayor, Councillor Booth asked this question about Crammy. So Crammy's Parks Recreation Facilities is at 18.5%.
Now, I can't remember. Was that relative to the same as the other one?
No,
Give or take,
16,
yes.
18, it's
In the flow.
Okay. And we're at half that?
What are we at?
Eight, wasn't it? Eight?
And Grammy was 15?
18.
18.5.
We never know, because they're probably almost the highest one. Second from the top.
Keeler's not cheap to run.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Booth.
Through you, your worship, and probably through Jeremy, and probably because my memory, I can't really recall, Jeremy, in the expenses, it talks about arena advertising for $2,500. Just not sure what that is. We had 500 last year, didn't spend anything, $2,500. Is that like boards and stuff like that? Like we're only bringing in 1,500, but we're spending 2,500? Or is that? Or am I way off base there?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, you're not off base. Some of that is investment in some advertising infrastructure that we can then use for future revenue generation. Some of it is to advertise arena programming as well, and programs that happen in the facility itself.
So where would the advertising be then? You're talking about in the paper or something? We don't pay for anything that's on Facebook or that, do we? No.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it could be traditional sources like paper, or we have done digital advertising as well. So it could be in the digital landscape.
Okay, and just one other one, Mr. Mayor, is just refresh my memory, Jeremy, under capital, we talk about capital equipment, $5,000. We had 5 last year. We didn't spend it and we're asking for another 5. I didn't write it down what it was.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. And again, I can't speak to last year's, I wasn't here for that, but we have identified, this is the arena and parks, so we have identified a few things. Trimmers and some of the smaller parts pieces, handheld stuff that the summer crews will need to maintain some of the grounds.
Thank you.
Aaron, if I could ask, I believe some of the park expenses are to be transferred over to from those departments to this group. Are they in there yet or not?
Through your mayor, which internal costs are you talking about? The
Grass cut.
caretaker? There's no internal transfers for the grass cutting.
Okay.
Sorry, there is for the cemeteries and things right now for 2024 as it was set out. 2025, there will not be because it's all under facilities as that's where those positions belong.
So through you, your worship, would that affect the library then too? Is the library paying for grass cutting in that?
That is part of their contract as well.
So,
They have a contract amount where it's payroll, HR services, those types of items will all be included.
but you just said though that next year, then there's no more transfers to say that it cut grass at Centerton.
They'll have one cost. So they'll have a little bit of change for the library because it's they're not within our township per se because they're like a contracted services within us. That there will be a little change there. There will also be a little bit of change in the fire for caretaking costs because we can expense that back to the county. So there are little ones, but we're trying to get rid of them as budget lines that don't need to be there. Per se, the caretaker was under building. They are now under facilities. The custodian was also under clerks and CAO. We have realigned that position under facilities. So we're trying to realign to make it a cleaner budget because of that.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could come back to a question I had, so this facility here with the grass around it, does that get billed to this building or does it stay in parks?
It will be under the facilities tab. So there's parks and arena and then there's facilities. So our
Facilities.
summer cruise will be under facilities and then parks as well.
Thank you. I'll put the hand over here.
Yeah. You, Mayor Logal, to Mr. Giles. So when I see parks, are we talking about all the parks in our municipality here? Or is it just at the arena site?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the Yellow Hawks.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Johnson?
So when we're looking back to follow up on Councillor Booth's question and going back to the library budget, there would be 11,000 in there in insurance and $36,925. So that's 48,000 pretty much. Where does that revenue from the 48,000 show up in our budget?
I believe under the admin, it is spaced out because of what it actually is. So the insurance line is already spread out across the insurance line. Under their services, would go under fees for wages, payroll, those kind of things, because that is part of their contract that they get their payroll, training, HR services. Those items would just flow back through the wage line.
Okay, so then your buildings and facilities and the grass cutting, where does that flow to then?
So again, it would flow back through to the wages.
So so we can't see it then. It's in here as parks wages.
Any other questions? Okay, so it's moved and seconded, but I guess we can't do nothing with it. So you know, need a motion to defer this one until the 10th. Moved by Councilor Booth. Second by Councilor O'Neill, all in favor? Motion's carried.
Sorry, back to that mayor logo. That would still be a revenue, and I'm not seeing where parks wages is a revenue. I see it over as an expense.
I'll have to look into that one for right now.
Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate it.
Go ahead. Go.
This will be a direct question to you, Mayor. With respect to your council, is there a goal in mind that staff could work towards? So we've deferred the Parks and Recreation budget. But we've also been very clear and identified a percentage of the budget that we're trying to realign this department with. So is there an overall goal of council where they would like to see this fit? So that staff could perhaps do some work as well? So currently we're sitting at, I think, around 13%. Do you want to see us come in at 10, 11?
I'm not sure where you coming from 13%.
So,
We started off at 7.6.
no, sorry, let me clarify.
7.44.
Let me clarify. The Parks and Recreation. The Parks, Recreation and Facilities budgets. Occupy approximately 13% of the total budget. Is there a goal in mind of council that staff could work with? So that we could try to then forecast the best use of those dollars to provide the best Parks and Rec facilities department for the township based on council's recommendation. The reason I ask is because we're on this side of the room, it feels like we're aimlessly wandering. And while I completely respect the decision of council, it would be nice to have some direction from council. And then we could go along with you and come back with those suggestions. So we're currently at 13%. And if there was a goal in mind, that would be great to hear.
Very helpful.
Super. I really, really appreciate being asked that question, because if I go to page 22 and I look at the variance from 2024 and 2025, and I look in those two departments, Rec and Culture and Parks and Recreation, that is $490,000. We're being asked to put another $490,000 into those two departments in a single year. And I mean, we haven't even gotten to our public works manager, and poor fellow. Anyway, and we don't have our asset management plan in place. Is this the time and place to put 490,000 into operations of that department? And back to Councillor Ainsworth, we're putting another 490,000 in there, and we're not even showing it as money in reserves for whatever project we do down in Grafton. But thank you for asking that question. I think he's got the right question. I think we need to, instead of looking at an increase of 490,000, probably be looking at closer to an increase of 100,000. But I mean, I'm thrilled to hear what my fellow councillors have to say. or whether or not we do this in two parts and say, well, some of it we're putting into reserves. We don't know what we want to do. To our CAO's point, it is an area that's not highly funded, but then back to, we have 430 kilometers of roads and bridges and culverts. We've got, yeah,
So
Yeah,
what
tough.
what percentage are you looking at?
well, what would that look like?
1% or 2%?
Oh, I think if we, what would 5% from last year have made an increase of? I'm just trying to look at,
0.13. He's asking us, I think what he wants to see is us go up to 10%. But you're saying we can't go to 10%?
well, sorry, we're having two different discussions. He's looking on page 23 and I'm looking on page 22, and the information feeds from one into the other. And we don't have our comparisons there to what percentage it was last year, but to say we are going to put 490,000 more dollars into recreation next year for operations.
So you're saying an additional 490 or?
That's what, no, that's what staff is saying. That's what it's telling me on page 22.
Are you saying they're gonna put another 490,000, so a total of $1 million? Is that what you're saying?
No, I am
for
saying,
last year.
to our CAO's point, I think we need to say to our recreation department, sorry, $490,000 ask as an increase in a single year is way too big of an ask. Go back, figure out how to come in with $100,000 ask. That's what would be my recommendation.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so Councilor Nero, I'm hearing a potential motion to remove $380,000 from the combined Parks and Recreation and Culture budgets from the proposed 2025 draft budgets.
Yeah, I am.
Councilor Booth, you better hand it up for-
I don't know if she's getting those.
I don't think she made a motion, just a comment.
Did you make a motion?
You wanted a motion, I'm willing to put that motion out there for discussion, that we send this back to that department. And you want it to raise it or to word it as a decrease in the amount going to that department. But I mean, we are not in a position to make a $490,000 increase.
Bothers me the word increase because I'm not quite understanding.
Okay,
So
if
what-
on
what-
page 22, if you look at your rec and culture, the increase, the tax variance from 2024, the first one for rec and culture is $286,478. And then if you look down under Parks and Recreation, the variance is $204,217. So I've just put those two together and they're approximately $490,000. 490,000, I don't even have my calculator. But if you're dividing that by 85, what are we looking at? That's our whole tax increases right there, Mayor Logal.
I'm not sure whether that's an increase in taxes of that much, but how much is an increase
There.
over the expenses?
That was my comment through you, your worship. On page 22, if you actually look at it, the rec and culture then is a variance of 188% more. Plus you're looking at another 40, almost 41% for Parks and Rec, which is 230% increase. So the CAO was looking at page 23, which I agree too, we're at 8.5, we're asking for 13. I'd be more happy with somewhere around 10 to saw it off, but I guess what Mary Catherine's looking at is the raw numbers there. It's actually 230% increase in Parks and Rec and Rec and Culture from last year.
One thing I'm saying, that's an increase in taxes, but is it an actual increase in cost? And it could be. Go ahead.
If I may. So, when we consider numbers in a chart like this coming up to a tax variance, I respect that Councillor Neal is speaking in static terms. But these numbers are dynamic. And that means that they have to work and flow together. So you haven't seen an increase in this department. You have seen an increase in this department. What you have really seen is a reallocation of funds in the municipality to support all of the departments. And it's in recognition that this department has been in serious neglect for many, many, many years. So we have taken funds from, example, Public Works, other departments in here. When you look at the variance, taxation variance of 2024, and you have some negative numbers in there as well that all contribute to the overall number. So yes, it is increasing this department 100%, but it is decreasing in other areas mostly, and I refer to my presentation earlier today, the discoverance of efficiencies within those departments of where we can find money to help support more appropriately where we need to. Aaron has advised me that in 2024, our Parks Rec was operating at 9.8%, an evaluation of the time of that tax base. And we have come in this year at 13.23. So I can understand what Councillor Neal is saying, that it's an increase of 400 and some odd $1,000. Yes, it is. However, that is a static way to look at the evaluation process of the the reallocation of funds through different departments. So
That's where it is.
Fair job.
I respectfully repeat that is $490,000, $500,000. When we don't have an asset management plan, when that isn't translating into managing these assets, it's not translating into repairs on these buildings. It's not translating into a plan for the arena facility. It is in operations. It is in staff. I'm not sure that I can go out to our taxpayers and say, I'm asking you for another $500,000. And what am I going to be able to say you are getting better for that $500,000? And I do have people asking me.
Revenues.
respectfully, Councillor Neal, and for clarity, we're not asking them for more. We're realigning dollar values. We're not asking for more. We're moving.
Fair job.
But if I were to ask, and the first 10 people I've found on the street here in Rosemeath, where do you want us to spend our money? They're going to tell us it should be in roads. There is just no way by July 1st, we don't have an answer on that culvert replacement. Maybe we just say we're not doing it. And we go to knock on the doors and tell the residents you're not getting it. But we've got to make that decision. Because if we do decide that we're going to do that culvert, the only place to get that 400,000 is right here. Well, there's a debenture, but I don't want to go there.
Libraries, there's community centers, there's all kinds of different places.
That's exactly what we're talking about right now is the recreation budget and these buildings.
There was a motion to. The motion was to take 300,000 from the combined parks and recreation and recreation and culture. I can't do it. For the 2020, go ahead, please. Who moved it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So Councillor O'Neill moved that we remove $380,000 from the combined Parks and Recreation and Culture draft 2025 budgets. So we only have a mover at this point. There's been no seconder to continue that discussion.
Sorry. I get a second, we can do that.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilor Booth.
I guess through you, your worship, I'd want more information from Councillor O'Neill. It's just that that's a huge chunk of money to take out of there, and it's easy to say, take out 300 and something $1,000 when we've just approved a bunch of things, which means Jeremy would have to basically go back there and gut things. And when I'm looking at page 22, which is a good page, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Mr. CAO, and page 23, because they both, I'm seeing that we're basically, Public Works is giving up almost 9% of their budget, which is huge because they're $1 million budget. They're almost giving up $300,000 that we are allocating to other places. And I do have to agree with Mary Catherine that most people that talk to me, one of their biggest concerns is the roads. And they want to make sure that they're plowed, that they're looked after. And we've even talked, Mr. Mayor, you've mentioned it many times about culverts and stuff like that, that people are concerned about that. If it fails or a bridge fails or anything like that, we're going to hear. And we heard a lot from roads this year. We talked about repairing roads like in AFN and that, where our guys tried to do some patching, and we got hundreds of complaints on Facebook about that. So I guess maybe I'm concerned that money is going from Public Works, and I'll use this analogy. I remember on last council, we used to spend roughly $1 million, Mr. Mayor, on roads and that, but $1 million 5-6 years ago doesn't buy $1 million worth now. And if we don't increase the roads budget, at least with inflation, the $1 million is getting less and less and less kilometers of roads done. Thank you.
We also do comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I guess it seems like we're hearing two different things, but I'm listening to our CAO and where money is being allocated and moved from one department to another. It's really not an increase in anything. It's just showing a decrease here and an increase there. So that makes a big difference when you make a statement that you want to pull $380,000 out of a budget. You know, I'll have the argument every day what that arena means to this municipality. Simple as that. You know, it's the only place you can drive by most nights and the parking lot's full. So the budget for that arena, our parks, our boat launches, these are things that are used quite often. So you know, I'm not in favor of pulling that out of the budget at all, especially when it's not actually money given to it. It's actually funds moved around. So it's there no matter what.
I have nothing to add.
To this.
I'm ready to vote.
Yeah.
I have something to add real quickly. I think I sent you something over the weekend regarding the Township of Wilmot. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read that, but they were suggesting that they would increase their tax levy by 50%. I don't know if they're going to end up with that, but we wouldn't, there are other people that are really needing money bad. That's all I'm saying. So if we want to continue to operate the services that we are, and that includes recreation, and that includes public works, it includes planning, it includes buildings, it includes everything. We are not going to be able to sit around and send back the same 4.5%. It just don't add up. And we can kick it down, as I was saying before, we can kick that can down the road, and it's been kicked down for 20 or 25 years. But sooner or later, people are going to have to start paying for it. And the longer you put it away, the more it's going to cost. So we go ahead, Mike.
So you, Mayor, I agree with you 100%, because I can't say it enough that we need to educate our residents on what's going on, because the average person would not have a clue what's going on with this budget and what we're trying to do to make this municipality run efficiently. It just, they really need to know and be able to need to understand. Maybe that I feel for Wellmont, because when I was reading it, I'm thinking in my own head, like, that's where we need to be. But is it reality? It's So, you know, if I was to make any kind of a motion, it'd be to have a public meeting,
We could-
like a huge public meeting and get people out and let them know what's going on with our funds. Lack of.
Okay,
I called for the vote.
okay. Can you read the motion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion that was moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Booth, is that we remove $380,000 from the combined Parks and Recreation and Recreation and Culture draft 2025 budgets.
All in favor? Opposed? That motion is defeated. Anything else that you want to talk about Parks and Rec? We're gonna move on to facilities and that's page 74. Oh, I think there's some things that are still up in the air on that, and that specifically would be the customer service person. And I'm not sure if there's anyone else that that's. But I'd like to take a motion that we approve the budget for the facilities. Budget.
Building assessments.
Yes. Facilities investment and customer service. You've heard of all of them? Yeah. Okay, so we need to move in a second or two. I want to get a motion to put it on the floor to review. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. We'll get it on the floor, which we have now, and then we'll discuss anything else that you want to bring up in this budget, this portion. Councillor Ainsworth.
Through you, Mayor. I guess it's always the same question for me. Basically, here is the revenue versus the expenses for each one of these facilities, and I guess down the road we'll have to, or we're going to have some kind of an assessment to done on where we want to go with these facilities. I mean, again, because here we are looking where we can find money. And if I was a businessman looking at, what we put into these buildings and what we get out of them. So, my thoughts.
Anybody else with a comment? Councillor Booth.
Yes, through you, your worship, to Jeremy. I really like the fact that we have in the capital budget that the 35,000, I'm thinking, Jeremy, on capital expenditures is for the key scan, right? I'm just hoping that if that passes and it comes into fruition, that would you be coming back with a policy or something? Because the issue with the key scans, which is great, you're going to give out key scan cards to people and they'll have them, but we need a policy with that of who gets a card, how long they get a card, things like that. I just don't want it getting out of hand. I've seen that before, where I worked before, where we literally had 2,700 cards out there. And we had to have staff spend time to go through them all and start deleting them because they were handed out to people willy-nilly and then we didn't know who had cards. So would you be, when that's installed, will you be bringing a policy or something back to us? And I'll use, say, Roseneath Fair. So they might want 5 or 6 cards during their Roseneath Fair thing that you would hand out to them and they would sign for them and then they bring them back or something in that regards.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we'll have a procedure in place for cards like we should with keys. The system that we'll be putting in, if it is approved, would also have, schedule capabilities for locking and unlocking, as well as remote capabilities, through computer systems on the back end where somebody can do it remotely. So, that takes a little bit of the onus off the actual key to everybody approach as well.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy, are you planning on putting these, in the 4 community centers? And any other places as well? Like Public Works, for example, or?
This specific BER is for the 5 community centers, including Grafton. But it has been talked about internally with staff for, roads department and stuff like that as well.
And probably double the price then. Yeah, not a fair question. Not fair, but and the arena's not involved?
The arena is included in this number, yes.
Okay. Anybody got any other questions or comments on this particular one? So we kind of jumped to that. You want a motion to move that?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, right now we do have a motion that council review the draft 2025 facilities budget. So if you wanted to call the vote on that one, that would clean that up, give you permission, and then discuss what we're already doing. We just kind of cart before the horse on this one.
Okay. Is that okay with you? Right?
Sure.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Mary Gautham.
I have 2 questions. I know this was touched on earlier, but we've now had wages from other departments moved over into the facilities wages. Can we go through which positions are now included in this facilities wages?
Need a motion to review the budget.
This is a budget line that I'm asking about? Okay.
So we should take a vote to discuss it, and then we'll go ahead with the discussions. All in favor? That's carried. Go ahead, Mary Gautham.
And so it's the wages, facilities wages. This is moving people around and allocating it to different departments, but how did that piece work out?
Go ahead, Darren.
Through you, your mayor. As we no longer have a programs coordinator, we did discuss moving our caretaker, as most of their job is at the facilities, including Grafton. So we will be moving that position from the CAO and clerk's wage line, which has already happened, as well as the caretaker, which was under building, has also moved to facilities as their main job is required for maintaining facilities.
Is that one of the contracted services?
No, that's for one of our part-time staff.
That answer your question?
So that's 2 staff members, the caretaker and the custodian.
Correct.
Okay. I'll follow that. And then my other is just an observation to pick up on Councillor Ainsworth's about the feasibility of these buildings. And if I look down here, there's 52,500 allocated to do maintenance on these buildings. And at the same time, council is saying we need to determine the feasibility. We need these building condition assessments. I would say that's where we can find the money that's my suggestion anyway, that we can find the money, because the first step is to do the assessment and then we'll know what to do from there.
Anybody else have any comments? I'm curious, Grafton Community Center utilities is doubling from roughly $7,000 to $20,000. That's on the, pretty well at the bottom, right? Third from the bottom.
Sorry, through you, your mayor. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, Grafton Community Center building, or pardon me, utilities. Going up to $20,000.
Through your mayor, that line, actually, if you notice, they do not have a contracted service line. So that includes the $10,000 assessment in there.
Okay. And the contracted services, what is that involved actually for the other department or other facilities?
Contracted services that obviously has the 10,000 in there for each one for the needs assessment, but other things that are in there are things like pest control, some electrical services and plumbing services that have been identified for certain buildings.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't know what the heck that was. Mary Gottlieb.
That does make me feel better to realize that you did have that worked into the budget already. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on this one? And can we approve it? Oh, no. So we'll defer this one? I'd like to come back to the BER 2025, which is the facility swipe cards. I need a mover and a seconder to bring it on, moved by Councillor Booth. To approve it? Yes. Yes. Yes, to approve it. Second by Councillor Deputy Mayor Stover. I have a question to Jeremy. Are is this equipment interchangeable or can it be moved?
Like if it was to be moved to a different facility in future,
Yeah.
yes, it could be.
Okay, so you wouldn't throw it out or nothing, it could be moved to a different location.
Correct.
Thank you. Anybody? Go ahead, Mary Gottlieb.
When you included on that list, you didn't address or the municipal building itself. Or do you already have keys, scans?
Sorry, I do have the municipal office building included. as
Okay,
well.
thank you.
Because right now it doesn't have that. It is keys. Okay, anybody else have any further questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Aaron, there's something you can add.
It's in there.
Original in there.
What's, sorry,
The UVR for the door security,
it's already included.
okay? Take a motion to take a 5-minute break, but we do have we want to keep going. So we'll be back at 3:05. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover and seconded by Councilor Booth. All in favor? Motion's carried.
at this.
Public Works, 300.
We're on page 94. 94, which is the planning budget. Everybody had an opportunity to look at it. All of the BERs, VREs have been completed. And I'm just wondering if everybody's happy with the budget as it sits. Or you'd like to talk about it. Okay, then we'll take a motion to approve the budget, the draft budget for the planning department for 2025. Could I get a mover to do that? Moved by Councillor Booth and seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Geez, Tracy, that was the easiest you had out of anybody.
Okay, next we've got the Public Works one, and in case everybody hasn't met before, Steph, have you met everybody on council?
Yes, everyone's come up and introduced themselves. Nice to meet everyone.
Welcome to the team.
Thank you very much.
Okay, have we got any questions regarding this budget? Questions or comments?
I have, sorry, Mayor. If I may, I have an update for council with respect to capital item. Which is the Works Yards building.
Okay.
Stefan just received the information from me today, but we had Travis look into the sand dome that is in Centerton that has come before council several times. And the person that was responsible for building it back originally has now been in to look at it. It's called, so it's a time and material repair for the building. And a report officially needs to come to council in due process. The gentleman has identified, now that the sand dome is empty, they've been able to get a good look at it. Because it was shingled a few years ago, the estimate now we are currently at is that a time and materials repair on the existing building is estimated between $40,000 and $60,000. And that they feel that the shingles that are on the building currently, they could get maybe 8 to 10 years more out of them. So you'd be looking at that dollar value to keep the existing structure and put off that expensive replacement.
Wow.
So again, an official report will come to council, but that line item that we've identified for capital works yard buildings, that is that line to pay for that.
So instead of the 100, you're looking at 40 to 60.
40 to 60,
And a pretty good guarantee.
roughly. Yeah, they feel that if they're able to repair it in a couple of the areas that have come down in, that it should be okay.
Okay. We're not gonna make a decision on that today, because we'll wait till your report, but yeah, we appreciate the update.
Thank you for the good news.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else have any other questions or comments? Mike?
Through you, Mayor. Again, I just want to highlight the Oliveville agreement. If we look over to the roads that are being done, it accumulates to about $338,000 of taxpayers' money. Yep.
Okay.
So I get it that we want to do business as usual, but I'm not prepared to commit that money personally, unless, our residents need to know where their tax dollars are going. So that should be, along with the negotiations that are going on, it still should be a public item.
Oh, this whole thing's actually public.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else have any other comments? Go ahead, CAO. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please allow Councillor Booth to go
No,
first.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Counselor. You're the man sitting there.
Oh, just through you, your worship, to Councillor Ainsworth's comments, I agree. I guess I'm torn between that this is coming from staff, and I know like the Roseneath Landing or the third line was the one that we tried to do patching on, and we pretty well got hammered in Facebook of what kind of job are you doing? You know, it's a comedy of errors and everything. So if we don't fix it, it's just going to get worse every year, and we can't do the patching stuff and everything. I'm not sure about Macklin Road to Marsden. Maybe somebody could update me on that one. I haven't seen it. I do know the Roseneath Landing and the third line one we basically have like 100 residents using that. So that's our own people that are complaining to us that the road is a disaster, right? And I'm just thinking that from what I've heard, that if you replace those 2 or 3, probably for AFN, there wouldn't be any major things foreseeable in the next future, in the next 4 or 5 years, it's gonna cost the same amount of money, right? Historically, I know with the last public works manager, with Troy, he tried to do something in the north, in the south, in the center, and then he tried to do a little bit for AFN, not committing too much money because they were still talking about an agreement. So totally understand what you're saying, Mike, and I agree with you. I don't want to spend any more money than we have to, but maybe the public needs to know that. Thank you.
CAO.
Yes, to you, Mayor, I would, 2 items. One is the asset management public works coordinator position has not been dealt with yet.
Okay.
And the other thing is that I would like to see a recommendation come from council. This is a recommendation of me to you, council, that monies remaining or not spent under the 2024 actuals. So we will have a better idea come February the 10th, what that update will be. But you're currently, as reported to you right now, sitting about $1 million under. So I would like to see that council consider the balance of that going to reserves as usually would do. But I'm also identifying to you of a potential of money that you could put into infrastructure for 2025 or earmark it specifically for infrastructure reserves, which does accomplish some of the goals that some council members have expressed.
I think that's probably a good idea, particularly with the ones like the sand and that type of stuff where you did not use it in 2024. So you will use it eventually. The one with the,
Just for clarity, Mayor, those dollars are in the budget every single year. If we didn't use it in 24, it's now surplus.
yes,
So I'm identifying that we've created a great opportunity for this council to earmark some dollars that are already going to be there for you because they weren't used in 24, whatever that update is.
okay. The one that I'm not sure, I would think that would be the right thing is regarding the, our, public works rail crossing maintenance for $220,000. That's a
So,
little bit different, I think. Go ahead.
so we are still currently, dealing with that. But considerably, you still have a reasonable amount of money to work with. So as an example, instead of increasing your tax rate to your residents, you will have money there to start off 2025 with some money to infrastructure reserves. Meaning it would be really nice if there was $500,000 there to go to bridge and culvert infrastructure, something along those lines. Instead of allocating 1% of your suggested, you now have a considerable amount of money potentially there that you could start there, and then you don't have to deal with it in 25. It puts you to 2026.
Mike,
In my presentation earlier today, these are the types of things that I was trying to identify that we've provided you opportunity just by mere efficiencies.
okay, so where does that money come from?
Unused money in 24.
And what is that? Is there a pocket of sitting there of that, or is that in reserves?
So the approved, it's all in your bank account. The approved budget from 24 is money that is there. And then as it gets used, it gets allocated through our accounting process to these different accounts. So the money is going to be inside of your working funds from 2024. Any monies left over from 2024, plus minus your inabilities to acquire some revenues, you're going to have a balanced dollar figure. Through this budget process, this council has not discussed that dollar value at all. Part of the goal of staff in 24 was to identify efficiencies, lean management to drive the township. So this is identifying that exact opportunity for you to make those types of decisions. So I'm suggesting that we come back on February the 10th to identify a closer dollar value to what that actual leftover dollar are, so that you can then make that educated decision. I'm really hoping it's going to give you a few $100,000 to deal with. I'm identifying it during the public works budget because you have additional opportunities that you need to do. You have other roads that could be done through your roads need study. You have your levy increases that you've discussed with respect to infrastructure that we can't afford through the working capital, but sorry, through the working budget. I'm bringing it to light. I'm trying to express that.
And can I just get Aaron to clarify whether that's coming out of reserves? Would that money be sitting now in reserves?
So again, through you, Mayor, none of the internal transfers have been done yet. So it's just sitting in the bank account right now.
Okay, so that is potential more money. Well, that's good. Go ahead, Greg.
I'm just wondering through you, your worship, to Dave. So is that also possible with other departments? Sorry, frozen. It's big for public works because it's $1 million, but if a lot of other departments didn't spend their money, could we get that number from Aaron when you're talking about it to say in total it's this, so that every department sort of pays a little bit? Because I just don't think it's fair, Dave, that, oh, well, Public Works through efficiency saved $1 million and we're going to take that and put it towards the asset management, when all the other departments, if you didn't spend your money, then they should also be contributing to the asset management too, right?
Through your mayor, for clarity, Councillor Booth, I'm suggesting it remains in this department. I'm not suggesting it goes outside. So if it's your bridges and your culverts and stuff like that, it's still within this department.
So it wouldn't be used for any of the other asset management things, for example, buildings or anything like that?
No, my recommendation is this department.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If I can comment, historically, from the county, any money that isn't used by the end of December in their budget or whatever, goes back to, through a resolution, it goes back to that department. You save for the next year, whatever they want. And that's what you should be doing as well. Now, do we do that, Aaron, or you know?
Through you, your mayor, that will come through the auditors when they do that. They usually do a whole bunch of adjustments. Hopefully through this year's process, we've already started interim process, and that the auditors will actually be in April this year, so that it will be a quicker process than last year.
Any other things that you want to talk about? I see there's caretaker costs in here that there was nothing put in for this year.
Again, because of these little through you, your mayor, because of these little transfers, we moved the position of caretaker and custodian to facilities, and this is one of our facilities. So in retrospect, it is under the same umbrella.
Okay. So first of all, we should discuss BER 2025-17, which is the Public Works Coordinator position. We haven't discussed that yet. And I believe it was deferred from last. Oh, there was no decision. Okay, are we ready to make a decision? Everybody have a chance to read it? Greg?
Not sure if a decision, but I'm ready to discuss it and listen to other counselors. Can we put it on to discuss it without making a motion to either yay or nay right now?
So would you mind making a decision one way or the other?
Sure, I'll make a decision that it not be accepted for this year.
So,
We'll just, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I can just for point of clarity, just to avoid a negative motion. And so we're consistent with our previous meeting that the position be removed from the budget package instead of not approved, just to eliminate any
Yes.
ambiguity. Thank you.
can I get a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Lewis.
Okay, so reading on page 109, it talks about during much of 2023 and 2024, the Public Works Administrator position was organizing and planning most of the day-to-day work that has been flowing through Public Works Department. And the person doing that job has done an excellent job. But it says there, in the absence of a full-time Public Works Manager, this position has grown to look after other responsibilities. Now that we do have a Public Works Manager, I think that this position, which it was originally hired for when I was on council, that person was to work as clerical support for Public Works and as an inputter for the asset management. The position was never to be a manager of asset management. It was always told to council that the managers of each department would give the information to that person and that person would input it. That person's not responsible for asset management and other than the inputting and stuff like that. It was supposed to come from the managers who are making the big bucks, right? So the other concern I have is, and this is where pay equity and that comes involved in, when council gets involved in going outside of pay equity and starting to give, this would be like a $20,000 raise, 11,000 plus benefits. When we start to do that and we start to give somebody, okay, Joe Blow, you're going to get this, we start to skewer the pay bands. And now we've taken people that in pay equity that said that this person who is a pay band 5, for example, it should be making the same as a plow operator, and we move them to a 6. These plow operators are going to come and now say, hey, pay equity said that I am the same job as that person, and now you've given them an $11,000 raise. I would like to see this person, now that we have the full-time Public Works Manager, that this person go back to what they were originally supposed to be doing. And then hopefully, if this council in the next budget meeting defers pay equity to next year, then we can look at the job descriptions and everything and decide with a consultant telling us whether we should move anybody out of pay bands. But we created a problem like this when this council, I think a year or two ago, bear with me, moved one of our caretakers, and we moved them out of a pay band and moved them somewhere else. And the people that were in that pay band started screaming to say, hey, listen, I'm making the same as Joe. Now you move Joe up a pay band, I should be getting it too. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
To you, Mayor Lobo, to Stefan. I like to call on you. You've been here all day. And it's only a thought. I'm wondering if we could defer this until the February 10th meeting, only because Stefan, through you, Mayor Lobo, you've been here a week.
Yes.
And that would give me a little bit more, we would have more insight, I would have more insight into the position and what is being experienced at the town yard.
Thank you. You wanna make that, we got we only. Motion to defer.
I'll make that motion to defer.
Can I get a
Thank you.
seconder for that?
I'll second it. I made the original motion, but I'm willing to defer it if more information comes.
Mhm.
Councilor O'Neill.
I would concur with the concerns that you were raising. And, you know, this came before me and I'm a math person, so I have a lot of, you know, warm feelings for people who are doing important financial information to us. But certainly, given what I'm seeing before me in this report, and given the fact that I'm not actually capable of analyzing it anyway,
Are you willing to?
But-
defer?
I am sorry, sorry, that's what we're speaking to now. I missed my chance before and I want to get my word in.
Have a chance in the February the 10th of everything.
Should we get to prove-
All in favor? Motion is carried to defer.
I think we did the water budget.
What about table 2025?
What page, Mayor Local?
That's the page 108. Can we discuss this and finish it off or nothing?
Sure.
Mayor Kaufman?
First of all, I mean, I'm not sure that it's our position to discuss anything other than how much we're going to budget for this based on the information we're provided. And I mean, this is a interesting table, but I would have liked to have seen what was said about these roads within our roads needs study to assist us with our decision making.
Perhaps the CAO can answer that.
I only imagine, I'm beyond recollection, but I'm sure the roads need study came to council.
Yes.
So our lead hands at roads put this report together and I believe them. So I guess maybe I'm not understanding the question.
So basically, you're asking, and I think what you're saying is, these roads were based on the needs study,
Correct.
not your question?
Basically, but it's going a little bit further and leading me into the broader question. So we do have a consultant hired to help, and we have a new manager of public works. So finally, I'm excited. This is our biggest budget. This budget matters. We've got to look at our infrastructure deficit. This is where it's the biggest. That's where the real money is going to have to come. And there's a lot of decisions to be made. And anyway, my question was, there are other factors than the roads needs study that might get a road on here. So maybe this road was put on here because it was flagged by the roads needs study, but maybe it's on here because this is a really high use road that is in need of repair. Like, it's not the only factor being used. So without there being a factor on, you know, anyway, my long and short of the question sort of leads is, this is sort of a guideline at this point, but we're going to get some more really, really good information with a manager in place and with this consultant report coming. So I guess it is that, is this set in stone? And then I do have a comment to the Councillor Ainsworth from earlier.
Okay, so is it set in stone? First question. I would suggest this, like others, are subject to council's approval. So if council wants to pull a road off and put a road on, I would guess you could do that. I wouldn't recommend it. If you want our public works manager to go back and confer with staff and say, did you guys look at the roads need study to do this list? Then yes, but I'm just gonna say that if you're doing that, then you're suggesting the report that we already brought together under my name, that I didn't do the right job.
Sorry, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay,
What I am saying is we're about to get a lot more information from our new manager and from our consultant. Is this a working document that can be impacted because of the new information that's going to come forward in the near future?
so the review of the Public Works Department by Dave Anderson is going to take a considerable amount of time. So with respect to the 2025 budget, I would suggest that at this point, what could happen is our new Public Works manager could go back and confer with staff and come back and confirm with council that, yes, in fact, this list is what we should be doing. That's about all we'll be able to get done by February 10th. That's, I guess, they could go and do more work if you want to delay the approval of the budget further than February 10th.
I think we should have Steph take a look at it and just confirm that that's what we want. That's what his recommendation would be as well, because he has some experience and we appreciate that. And then my other comment too is, I don't know if you've ever looked at a Joule engineering study.
No.
Nuts, but anyways, I'll tell you right now, Mary Catherine, you mentioned how much volume of usage and everything like that. That's all in there.
Yeah.
So that, and I would think that's why they made those decisions and recommended to it. But I don't have any problem if you want to get Steph to take a look at it and bring it back to us next week. I think that is probably the right thing to do. Greg?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, if she's just finishing your.
And in, there was some reference to the AFN ones, and in particular, Third Line is a highly used road, and it certainly was a hot issue when I was campaigning. And I mean, that story of this agreement started 14 years ago, and for all I know, it's another 14 years before we get any resolution on it. And in the meantime, that road needs attention.
Go ahead, Greg.
Through you, your worship, just a comment to the, what, not the Public Works manager anymore, the temporary one, but I just wanted to thank you very much, Dave, for this. This is the first time now in 7-8 years that I've actually seen something like this come to us in budget, and I'm very happy to see this. It's, instead of in the past, it used to be we approve, $1 million for roads and we'll give you the list later. I think this is great that we as council get to see this so that the public knows this is what we've approved. And I like what you said, Mary Catherine, and it's not in any way, David, disparaging. I think now that we do have a Public Works manager, that even if he just went back and discussed with staff to say, guys, we've looked, just to double check, we've looked at everything and I have no issue with this. It looks great, right? But I don't think it hurts, and it probably puts Stefan in a better position to say, guys, give me your way of thinking of how we came up with these roads. And if we're all good with it, we'll go back to council and that's it. But thank you again, Dave, for this. This is great to see.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I kind of look at it like potato to potato kind of thing. Like, if we're going to fix this many roads and we're going to, with this value of dollar, it's, I don't want to hold it up. Let them go have their conversations and come back to us later on and say, hey, we're going to change that road to that road. But
Yeah, that
today,
was my question.
I would say that we should just, we're going to pass it. Let's get through it. And
I'm
And-
sure that.
and it is great report. It's all a great report.
I'm sure if Steph come to us and said, I have to change this, and here's the reasons why, council would consider it.
Yeah.
So we need approval.
But Mayor,
Yes.
I do want to, I guess at the end of it all, we'll do like maybe a full review on where we want to go and whether we want to have a public meeting before we sign it off.
So we actually will have a public meeting. We have to have a public meeting before we sign off. Maybe not the public meeting you're thinking of, but we do have to, in order to approve the budget, it has to go public. Correct, Aaron?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, our entire budget process has been a public meeting. So members of the public have been welcome to come and attend, submit submissions, delegations, and submit questions to council or through the council correspondence piece. So we have been running a very open, very transparent, very accountable budget process, starting with the budget package, which is providing far more background information than previous years as well. So we are very much fulfilling that. There was at one time, a legislative responsibility to provide a open public meeting for delegations and such. However, that piece of the legislation has been removed as a formal requirement, but we are still meeting all of our obligations under municipal act.
Just a comment on that through your worship is, I like the idea of what Councillor Ainsworth's thinking, and I think we should look outside the box, is that a lot of people over the years have said to me that when we used to do the meeting at Centerton with the budget was already voted, cast in stone, so why inform the people want an opportunity, and I know we've done an excellent job, Emily, on this. I really commend staff on this. This is the best budget I've ever seen in 7 years for giving information. But I like Councillor Ainsworth's thing is before we put a final stamp to say, go ahead, I like the idea, what he said is that we have a meeting to the public and let them come and let them hash out or have a saying or whatever. You've said, Mike, the public doesn't understand the pressures that we and staff are under. Let them come and speak, because right now they can sit in the background, but they can't say anything. I want to hear from people so that when they do, and John, I'm sure you as the mayor then can say to somebody, well, if you want no increase in taxes, tell us what you want us to cut, because something, and I think that's open, and I like that Mike is saying that, because that's thinking outside the box. And then if you don't come to that meeting, let's say we have it at Centerton, and you don't say anything, then shut up, because we've listened to you. And I know it's a dangerous thing because people get to come and say it, but I'd rather they come and say it to my face as a councillor than they go on Facebook and they be a keyboard warrior and they all bitch about it, but not one of them came to the meeting. So I like that idea, and I'd support that if Councillor Ainsworth makes a motion in the future to have a meeting like that.
I know that the previous council, there was a process where it was sent out, generally made aware the public that this is the point we want you to comment on the budget. And there were actually several, I think people were getting in 40, 50 different responses coming in with questions being asked. Why is this line this, or why is that? And I do agree. I mean, one of the things that came up at one of the conferences I went to last year was that other councils actually are now using technology so that if somebody's calling Mike and asking about, I don't know, Vernonville, and somebody talks to Joan about the Grafton Library, that's now being fed in so that we've got a sense of what are the issues that are resonating within the community, because I'm not sure that we've got a great sense of that. I know we started this process with that. And I think we can pick up then from that first survey, because we did get quite a few responses. I can't remember offhand how many it was, but I have 35. Yeah. So, I mean, we started there. We've now wrestled with this quite a bit. I continue, and I think this is interesting that we're sitting here looking at one another, and he's like, we got to get the money over in the arena. And I'm like, we got to get the money in the roads. Well, it is related to it in that I think that there is a point for that to come again.
What are you saying? Are you saying we should have that meeting before the 10th?
I'm saying personally that we should go back to what we did at the beginning with a survey, maybe a shorter survey or, you know, some highlights, because people were giving feedback before they had any concrete information in front of them. But I do think we should have an opportunity for feedback now that there is there is concrete information in front of us. And whether or not there's an opportunity at some point for delegations as well, as the gentleman are suggesting, that might be, that's a different discussion.
Go ahead.
Your comment, Mr. Mayor, through you. I don't know if it has to be before the 10th. What I would like to see. No, I know. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, is I think before we I would like to have the meeting on the 10th and all these items we've deferred, we gotta make a decision one way or another, and this is the increase. And then, Mr. Mayor, go to the public and say, this is what it is, and we're going to approve it. And unless you change our mind that day or something, then the next meeting we have or whatever, we approve it. But I think it gives them false hope if we have a meeting and it's already been approved, because asking for their input now, and 40, 50 people gave their input, they might still want to make a comment, and some of them might. I went to the breakfast last Friday and people were hammering me about stuff, and it's like, hey, we're still discussing it. There's no final decision. So I'd like that meeting after the 10th to say, this is where we stand now, and it's going to be 6% or 7 or 8, and come have your say. And I call it a bitching session, but come have your say, and at least we've listened to you, and we could still say, well, we're going through with it. That's it. Hopefully that's what you meant, Councillor Ainsworth. I don't know.
And who would be involved in that?
Well, it would, all of council, I think, would be there with staff and be prepared to answer a question. So for example, this list right here with the roads, if somebody says, well, why are you doing, Clouston or this or that? If Stefan was there to say, well, we've looked at the roads and east study, and we've looked at this and that and everything, and this is the one that we feel is, that's all.
Suggested we give the whole package out to everybody.
Well, what I would suggest, it gets sent out electronically to everybody, and then that night, say we had it at Centerton, that there might be some hard copies there for some people, right? But I don't know, we could work that out, right? They used to have hard copies for everybody years ago.
John,
That's my.
is this budget online already?
Through
Through you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, yes, it's available on our website through,
Yeah.
through the plans and report section, as well as, through all of the agendas that have been published publicly.
So people could download it off our website by themselves if we directed them that way with some advertisement.
That's correct. So,
Perfect.
through-
So,
sorry, if I may.
Yes.
So through Mr. Mayor, we have advertised this, all of the budget meetings through Facebook with direct links to the agenda packages, the drafts as they've been published. We also have going out at the end of this week with our tax newsletter inserts, an update on the budget process, as well as a direct link in that newsletter as well, to the online packages. In order to print and bind and have these available, there is a significant cost associated with that, to have physical copies available.
yeah,
My idea is maybe a little bit different, so we don't stall the process. But after the budget is passed, that we have an open, a town hall meeting. And that would describe the roads that are going to be done, some of the positions that we have put forward, things that we're working on throughout the year. That would be my only other suggestion. Because if we do it in reverse, it could be, we could be into March or April till we finalize it.
Go ahead, Mike.
through you, Mayor. One of the key things that I would want the meeting for is to educate the residents on the lack of fees that we have to get things done. And they need to understand that. So when people are wondering, why we're not doing this or why we're not doing that, or this getting rebuilt or whatever, well, it's because we don't have the tax dollars. And give them an opportunity to say, maybe they could afford an extra 2 or 3% out of their household. For, just so they understand, more of a communication and educate them. Because, every year when we come through with a 5% increase, or actually like a 2% increase over what we did last year, so it's.
Okay,
Do we-
gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. So through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is in part of the annual budget process. This is just one step that we're currently doing. So once the budget's approved, there's multiple steps afterwards, both from the financial world and for the departmental managers to then go off and start implementing what it is that council has approved. From a communication standpoint, our work is only just beginning in the clerks and corporate services world, in that we then go through and we do updates. So in the next newsletter that would go out in June, we would publish the construction schedule and sooner as well. So any of the approvals that come through, we would do a press release afterwards indicating this is what's been approved. Here's the gross amount. Here's the impact, the monthly impact based on average assessment value. So all of those communication pieces are in the works to take place once we get it approved. Also do the pie chart that we have in there, the allocation of tax dollars. So it is part of that financial sustainability and communication or community engagement piece of it. So approving the budget's one piece. That's really just where the work begins for staff on a whole multitude of fronts, with communication being one of them as well. My concern with having a public meeting and putting this on hold before a final seal of approval is you would be looking into potentially April for approval based on the requirements for updating the packages, because that takes a significant amount of time, making sure the numbers are updated. And then by delaying it to have a public meeting, there could be changes that come out of that meeting as well. And again, I'm not saying shut down the community, because we do have the opportunity now for anybody to make a delegation on any of the packages, submit questions ahead of time through either council or staff now for council correspondence process. So that is still available to the public. It is a very public process, and those options do exist currently. If we delay it and push it with public meetings, it is something for council to consider, that you're not looking at a budget approval until potentially March, April, even early May, at which point when you get into construction tenders, for example, you're already behind the 8 ball in terms of the timelines there. So that's just something to percolate for council's thoughts and pricing as well.
Because the longer you wait, the more people have already got theirs applied for, and the less chance you get it right. Very confident.
I am wondering if we can make you utilize Let's Talk. It's there, we've got it. I am starting to see on social media a little bit of back and forth about the budget, but I think it would be to get those voices coming through one location in Let's Talk saying, we want you to consider this, or that's too big a raise, or those kinds of things.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we can look at doing another survey. We aren't currently utilizing Let's Talk anymore. That was a cost savings that we identified. We were still able to do the same thing through another social engagement platform without the cost associated with it, for, I believe, is about a $7,000 a year savings. But we do still have that opportunity. So we can do a public survey to get that consolidated feedback if that's something that council wants. But again, we wouldn't be able to push that survey until we had the final package updated. And then, of course, we have to allow time for the community to get word out there and then actually participate. So you're still looking at about a month's lag, but that is something that we can certainly do as well with the surveys.
I'm going to stop the conversation right now. We had some of it. We've got all our I's and T's crossed. We will discuss this tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow morning, after we get done our regular meeting. Last 15 minutes. So think about it overnight. We do that. We can do that.
It's not on the agenda.
We'll do it.
Well, yeah.
What's that? Okay. So we finished the discussion on this. Public works. Okay. Let's keep it rolling. We got not overtime, 113. 113. 113 involves the water service budget. What would you like to do with this? We had a presentation this morning. Mary Catherine?
He was going to get us some information, and I thought that was straightforward, but my question is a logistics question. I believe this is not part of that. It has to be passed as its own budget, not part of the overall, because it's supposed to be a self-sustaining budget. Am I wrong there?
It can be passed with our regular budget. It's the same as building. It's self-sustaining and does not affect the tax levy, but it can be passed.
So,
But passed at the same time.
so why don't we defer it till, because as you said, they'll.
Adam.
Adam.
Adam will have some information for the 10th.
Right.
Is that okay with
Yeah.
everybody?
Yeah,
Need to move in
yeah.
second.
I'll move it.
Just have to do it. I'll just let it roll. Okay. Library.
We already did it.
Need approval?
There's changes being made for the 10th. Even though they're minor, we might as well wait and pass it on the 10th.
I hope the 10th is a long day. Environment. Can I get a mover and a second to approve the environment budget? Moved by Councilor Booth, second by Councilor O'Neill. Any discussion? All in favor?
Discussion, just a comment. I might have moved this to discuss it, but I'm not happy with. Ganaraska, I find is totally reasonable, but I think Lower Trent is, in my words, are gonna say has gone crazy with the amount of, that's one of these ones where we're gonna go to the public and they're looking at the increase over the years to say that's ridiculous. That's just my comment. Thank you.
And about the only response you can give to that is that it's election coming up. The costs have been pushed back from the county, or pardon me, from the province. And the council, pardon me, the municipal group has to pick up those costs, and we don't have any choice.
Yep.
We're told we have to pick them up. That's a rule. Right? No? So, all in favor? That's carried. Protective service budget. I get moving in a second to this budget. Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councilor Booth. Any discussion? All,
No.
okay, go ahead, Mayor Gavin, or pardon me.
Through you, Mayor Logo, this is a significant budgeted item here. You don't need me to say that. I'm just wondering, when you're having your meetings, are you able to find out when they are in our municipality? Because I don't see much policing down in my area, but that's not to say it's not there. But I mean, they did pull me over one day, so anyway. And I got off. But anyway, I was just wondering if there's some way of us knowing when they are in our municipality, or the percentage they're in our
I
municipality.
can tell you that in their monthly reports, which I don't know yet. We had a meeting last week, and they told us exactly how many hours they spent in the township. How many walking hours, some who were charged, et cetera, et cetera. That's all public information.
And that'll be coming through
Should be
here.
coming through, our notes. But you haven't received nothing for Debbie, eh? Maybe they haven't been approved yet. But they should be available.
Thank you.
So we will see that then, Mr. Mayor, right? Just
Absolutely.
because I like that idea that,
It's public information.
good.
But that wouldn't be for every stop, would it?
Every stop.
Mhm. Or
They
charge it?
don't, no, they don't get into particulars, but they
Oh.
will tell you that, this is, I've had 15 charges under the alcohol act, or 10 charges under this, and we've
Okay,
had 3 deaths in the last month, and all of that type stuff.
thank you.
We're about to, you know. Oh.
Did we approve that one?
That's, I guess we're,
You haven't really got it.
Approval.
I moved it.
Yeah. All in favor? That's carried. Get to the back. I'm gonna.
Animal services.
And annual animal services, the annual budget for 2025. A little bit higher than last year, but certainly in the same neighborhood. Could I get a mover and a second to approve this? Moved by Deputy Mayor Stover, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Further discussion? Go ahead.
Through your Mayor Local, I'm wondering if, are we still in the program with the online dog tags? I guess this would be, and does it seem to be profitable?
Through your mayor. Unfortunately, I can't answer that because I don't know too much about this program. I just see the numbers when they come in as for invoicing from the service.
Okay, thank you.
I do know a little bit about the program. I signed up for it 2 years ago. And in the mail every month or every year, I get a tag that I have to pay $20. I pay the $20 and it's done. It
Okay,
works out good. I wish more people were using it because there's an awful lot of taxes that we could be receiving, but since people don't use it, we have to put it on their tax bill. Very good. Oh,
Yeah.
CAO, did you have something, your hand up? Thank you. Mary Catherine?
Yes, back to when the first budget we saw, it was like $400 or something, and now we're at 3,500 last year. So we are getting much more than we were. But this is one of those things where I think a little more outreach on it. There was some outreach right at the very beginning and then it fell off. She's nodding like she's on it. As a counselor, I really wish I could respond in social media to all those lost dogs with, here's where you go to get your tag.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, Councillor Neal, we are being very proactive. And in our tax newsletter insert, we do have a little plug on there for dog tags and dog licensing and where to get them through DocuPet and Northumberland Humane Society. So we got you.
And one step further, it does let them know that it helps them get their dog back, and it's actually cheaper to get your dog back then.
Mr. Mayor.
Through your worship, maybe you could answer this question, or somebody that I do the same thing every year, pay for my dog and have the license, and I see on Facebook all the time where lost dogs and they're picked up and everything. Is there something we can do for bylaw, or is there some kind of fine or something that if people choose not to pay the $25 and their dog is caught and goes to the pound or whatever they do with it, that there's some kind of, because if there's no fine or if there's no penalty, people are going to say, why would I pay the $25? Because I'm going to get my dog back anyway, right? I'm not sure. I have no idea.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have dog at large fines. What they are off the top of my head, I'm not familiar with, but that bylaw does exist in NHS, sorry, not NHS, the Northumberland Humane Society. So yes, does enforce that for us. And in response to your other question, is the header under the tax newsletter insert is actually titled Getting Rover Home. So
oh, that's good. Is this for cats as well? Just dogs? So the
No cat license
So,
yet.
so the cats can go walk.
I don't think so.
But if you want to pay dog. Mike?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Can you explain what the Joint Animal Control Services is? And I'm just kind of wondering if the thought process into bringing the revenues versus the expenses any closer, why that's so far away. I know it looks like here not required from taxation, but still 8,400 to 42,000.
Oh, net.
Not, it's net.
No, net, yeah.
You've been at it
Oh, yeah.
too long.
You've been at it too long. But I don't know, just that thought process. It seems like the township's paying a fair amount of money for,
Animals controls.
well, it's animal control, like it's,
Well, it's a lot.
And the livestock's part of it too, like it's,
Not very much. Go ahead, Dave.
Through you, Mayor Logo, I can tell council that we use the animal control services a lot. With
Hmm.
respect to pilot. A lot.
wow. But what is that animal control services? That's them?
So that is
The Humane Society is part of it, I think.
Humane Society, but not jointly. Through your mayor, largely that is your animal control group. So your livestock officers, etc. They're in Coburg. Trying to think of the right name right now. But we use them a lot. We have a lot of dog complaints. We have several animal complaints with respect to zoning. So they are used. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not surprised because if people get bit or something like that, we call. And that's, they will hold the dog up and it's not everything. It's actually quite expensive.
Animal Control Services is the name of it.
Animal control services. And they are part of the Humane Society, are they not? Because they used to have the joint group between municipalities and it was too expensive.
Depends how it's set up.
So Mayor, is there an option for for a talk on a cost recovery for this?
Yeah. People with
Like-
dog tags.
Well, that's what I mean, like, without going out and, you know,
I've suggested it more than once that we hire a kid for the summer and go around and you have people pay for the dog tag if they see a dog. The only trouble is you send out a kid, he gets bit, then you're in.
well, you know, this is one of the things that you talk about at the public meetings. There's probably 90% of the residents don't even know that we're wasting that much money on that services.
Yep. There's a whole bunch of things I'm sure we could talk about.
Yeah.
The other, so what else can we bring up? Is that a motion? Move in a second? No, guys, all in favor? That's carried. The final one we got is the council to consider the implementation of a designated infrastructure reserve levy to address the future assets and infrastructure needs to the township. Anybody thought about that? Regarding?
I mean, I think we're at the maximum and maybe past the maximum. There's a huge gap this year between the CPI, the cost of living increases, and the tax levy increase that we're going to be asking. It's certainly huge, and I don't see how we can make it any bigger. So if I have sat here today and people said, we're going to put that money into operations, and that's the decision we make, then we don't have that money to put into an infrastructure levy.
Could we defer this until we see the actual number on it?
I think we have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we should be planning on, a lot more than CPI. Because we're just avoiding it forever. That's not right. Not right to my kids, it's not right to your kids neither. And the services are gonna be big sufferers. Maybe you have a comment.
Just to agree with you, the comment you made about kicking the can down the road, and it sounds like we're gonna try and do the same thing, and we're gonna have to finally make a decision to say what it is, and I do like the decision that Dave talked about maybe using some of the reserve money at least to build that fund up, because even a 1 or 2 or 3% is not gonna be enough money to even cover just for the culvert this year. But if you could put $1 million in there or something to whatever, then at least you can we have to show something that we're doing something.
So, Deputy Mayor Stover has made the motion that we consider this, but defer it till, the meeting of the February 10th. Can I get a seconder for that? Councilor Booth, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, everyone. Oh, no, oh my God. Yeah, we gotta get to the hard stuff now. Okay, so we've done, there's a 3.5%. Yes, but you're suggesting was 3.5%. I don't think we saw that, but on the second recommendation, and I didn't realize it was there, but it does actually say 3.5%, but I do agree that we shouldn't find out where it's screwed before we make that final decision. Next item is, budget recommendation number 2. That council received the draft 2025 budget package for information, and that staff be directed to make changes to the draft 2025 budget package as requested by council for presentation on February 10th, 2025 at a special council budget meeting. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councilor Booth, seconded by Councilor O'Neill. Discussion, all in favor? Oh, go ahead.
I actually do. It goes back to our CAO's question earlier in the day, and then what you were getting at, I think, Deputy Mayor. Do we have an idea of what we think is acceptable to go out to the public with? Like, do we want to be anywhere close to that 3.5%? And I know that we did this in our first year. On the last day, we said, we want you to find 1% and put it into, it was the fire equipment budget. And that's what we did in our first year, because we were trying to get ahead of this asset management thing. And then last year we did it for the equipment, but it was planned. But I'm wondering if that is something that staff would find helpful to say, you know, we don't really want to go above this number, and we do want to see some specific allocation for asset management.
You.
Through you, Mayor Logal, to Aaron. What is 1% of our current? Is it 86,000?
Yep. A little over.
My opinion, that's peanuts, because that is not gonna build a bridge. That is probably not gonna do the requirement to schools. And probably won't have a student, might even build.
3.5%.
Huh?
300,000. So it is about 301,000. And I would, as I've already indicated to council. Shut me up. As I already indicated to council, when we come back on February 10th, this might be a non-decision for you. It might be there for you. And you could start it off with 2025 without impacting your tax levy increase. So give staff that time. We could take what you have there for 3.5%. And we should, we'll come back with an identification of what the number is. We'll be close. It won't be definitive. Your auditor's report will be definitive, but it'll be close.
My only comment to that is, I think it's a great comment. Anybody that's running for the council next year, or pardon me, the next election, better not be wanting to put too much into the reserves or whatever next year, because you'll be putting the budget out 6 months before they vote. That's a fact. So if you don't have no increase, or you limit the increase this year, and then you have to really sack it to the next year, that's gonna be tough. I know.
I'm not worried about it.
Okay. Oh, yeah. We got to move in a second here. All in favor? Motion's carried. Confirming bylaw. that bylaw 01-2025 being a bylaw to adopt the proceedings of the special council meeting held on the 27th day of January 2025 and to authorize its execution to be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed this 27th day of January 2025. Mover in a second. Moved by Councillor Booth, second by Deputy Mayor Stover. All in favor? Motion's carried. And that the special council meeting held on January 27, 2025 be adjourned at 4:12 p.m. Mover in a second. Moved by Councillor Booth, second by Councillor Ainsworth. All in favor? Motion's carried. I love your hat.